Evening, wherever you're calling from. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Barton Publishing Diabetes Reversal Webinar. I am Joe Barton, your host, and we have Leslie Prinz in the background making everything happen, and Dr. Scott Saunders calling in from pre-Hawaii. He's not pre-diabetic,
No,
but he is
Santa Barbara.
pre-Hawaii. Huh?
I'm in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, you look golden. Like the sun is out. Like you got, yeah, you got sun in California. I am jealous. I was in Cali last weekend and it was amazing, beautiful. Got sun on my head. Felt good. Well, hey, welcome everybody. We are getting people hopping on here. We've already got a great number of people here. So hop in the chat, say hello. Tell us where you're calling from. Tell us how you're doing. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 meaning I could not be better, life is absolutely grand, or 1 is I barely got out of bed this morning, or 5 is like, it's all right, you know, give us a number. What is your number today? Mine is a solid 9. I'm feeling pretty good. I think if I was in Santa Barbara, it'd probably be 10.
Yeah, I'm 10. Yeah.
You're 10, yeah.
It works.
All right, all right. Good morning, Melanie. Melanie is an 8 from Wichita. Awesome, good to hear. And don't feel afraid if you're at a 2 or 3, like, hey, we're here for you. We're gonna, by the end of the call today, if you're at a 2, you're gonna be at least at a 6. That's what I'm thinking. So, all right, we've got, Facebook Live is not working today, but we'll get it later. So, all right, good stuff. Hey, we got a couple 9s here. We got a 7. Welcome, everybody. Grace and Janice and Gordon. Good to see you guys. Everyone else, come on now, get on this chat. Tell us how you're doing. This is an interactive community of people that are looking to improve our health through good information and education. So today's topic that we're going to get to in just a minute is artificial sweeteners versus natural sweeteners. And this is going to be a controversial and great topic because a lot of things that we have grown up believing as true are not so much true that we're going to learn about today. So this will be good. Good information to learn. And so, hey, if you are just new to this program, this webinar, let me tell you a little bit about the diabetes reversal webinar. So this is something that Dr. Saunders and I have been doing for over 6 months now. For free. We do it every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, and then we post the replay on YouTube, and sometimes we go live on Facebook, but we do this because we love to help people. It's one of our core values, and we want to help answer questions, to help people get over obstacles, and learn also, like, most of you have already gotten a copy of this diabetes solution kit. And so what we teach on these webinars is really an extension of this program right here. So if you don't have a copy of this, if you're watching this without having this, you can get a copy of this on bartonwebinar.com is where you can get a link. That's the link to go to for any of our products. So Leslie can post that in the chat, but or you can just type in bartonwebinar.com. So that's what we do. We've gotten a lot of great feedback about these webinars. And honestly, like, we don't get, like, you know, thousands of people joining us necessarily each week, but we get enough great interaction with people that it makes a difference to our team, because we get to, you know, see like what you guys are going through, and helps us as a business, as a company, to better serve you. And that's our goal, is to help more people and help people more. So with that, let's get started. Let's get right into it. Dr. Saunders, tell us about the myth of natural and artificial sweeteners. And
okay, so the myth is that calories produce the problem. That eating calories are the problem when you're looking at sweeteners. So, for example, people will eat a hamburger and French fries and have a Diet Coke. And the Diet Coke they're eating so that they don't get the calories from the drink, right? So it's a non-caloric drink, like a zero or something like that. However, the the sweet taste is the problem and not the calories themselves. In fact, multiple studies have shown that the concept that we were always told that calories in, calories out determines how much fat you have on your body, how much sugar you eat has something to do with the diabetes, and that's all sort of the minor portion. It's kind of like the old myth that you could lose weight by exercising. And when people look at how much it takes, for example, it takes running a marathon to lose 1 pound of fat. So the idea that you're going to lose weight, like lose 20 pounds by what, running 20 marathons? You know, it's not going to happen is the point. And that's the same with this. This myth is that if we eat fewer sugar calories, then we won't get diabetes as easily, that we won't gain weight as easily. When the reality is that we're not working with calories, we're working with hormones. And the hormones help us to put on weight, to hold on to fat, and to get like when we get diabetes, pre-diabetes, it's because we're resistant to insulin. And what's really interesting about artificial sweeteners is they make us resistant to insulin. And multiple studies have shown that, and yet nobody talks about it. Everybody still says, ooh, these artificial sweeteners are great. They're not great.
That is truly insightful. And yeah, well, I mean, going back to what you said about running a marathon, you can lose 1 pound of fat. You burn 1 pound of fat when you run a marathon. The other way to burn 1 pound of fat is by basically not eating food for 24 hours or so, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if you stop eating food, then you will burn about 1 pound of fat every day. And think about that, you know, what's easier, to run a marathon or to not eat for a day? You know, I have people, I had somebody who just says, okay, I'm not going to eat for 30 days. He lost 33 pounds, cured his diabetes, cured his sleep apnea, his blood pressure went down to normal in 1 month. And he was off all his medications and felt great, and is now playing tennis, when before he couldn't play tennis, or he couldn't even walk across the room without getting chest pain. And in only 1 month, he's now all back to normal because he didn't eat. So yes, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. Getting a lot of good questions and comments in the chat here. I want to ask another question for people that are watching us live right now on Zoom. What are your go-to sweeteners? Like, give us a little bit of feedback. Is this like surprising to you? Like, what kind of sweeteners have you been using thinking that they're better because they're low calorie? I'd like to see a list. Like,
so in the meantime, can I talk about a couple of them? Okay. Yep. Sucralose. This is Splenda. It is used all over the place. They make it out of sugar in several steps. And what they do is they put a chloride molecule on it. So it's a chlorinated carbohydrate. So it's not used as energy for the body. And that idea is you can actually get the taste of sugar without putting any energy in your body. You know, seems like it would be perfect, right? But there are a lot of side effects that happen because the sucralose is not used as energy. So for example, the bacteria in your gut are really important. They're important for your function. They're important for your brain. They're important for your digestion. They're important for your nutrients. And what sucralose does is kills them, because they take up this chlorinated sugar as if it were sugar, but they can't use it as sugar. They can't process it, and they die. So
What's really interesting, though, is in animal studies, it kills all the good bacteria, but does not kill the bad bacteria. So people who are using sucralose are more likely to get all of the problems, digestive and brain problems, including like bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, than people who don't use this artificial sweetener. Because it's killing their good bacteria.
Oh, that's so. Sucralose is kind of a double whammy because it's killing off your good bacteria. It's not killing off bad bacteria, and it is promoting insulin resistance as well.
Yep, and not only that, if you cook with it. Some people go, oh, you know, it's perfect, you can cook with it. But it turns out that when you heat it up, the chlorine molecules make a chlorinated glycol that is actually cancer promoting. Sucralose, if you cook with it, you're promoting cancer. If you just eat it, you're increasing your insulin resistance and killing your good bacteria. Okay, so it's not an answer. You know, people think, oh, that's the perfect answer. It is not an answer.
So compare that to stevia. We've got a few people that talk about how they use stevia, and monk fruit maybe as well. Like, are those better if you are going to have a sweetener? Are those better because they don't kill your gut bacteria?
Yes. Yes, there are several kinds of sugars that don't promote cancer. Or sugars or sweeteners that don't promote cancer and don't kill the bacteria. And stevia is one of those. But stevia still has the problem, if you're insulin resistant, of creating insulin resistance. So what's really interesting is back to the sucralose, they did 2 different studies. One of them was on people who'd never used artificial sweeteners before, and then versus the people who were using sucralose on a regular basis. So they looked at insulin resistance, and the people who hadn't used it before, they had a measurable 20% increase in insulin resistance when they started using sucralose. The people who were using it regularly, they couldn't see the difference on whether when they were using it versus when they were not, because they were already using it regularly. It had already done its dirty deed, so to speak. Yeah. So stevia now has that same issue, because the taste of sweet causes the pancreas to put out extra insulin, which brings on more insulin resistance. So just because it tastes sweet, there's no other reason. So that by itself is a problem. In fact, I had a patient who was on a broth diet. She had intestinal issues and needed to lose weight and had insulin resistance. And on her broth diet, I said she could have herbal tea. And so she was really upset that she only lost 4 pounds in 2 weeks. And most people lose a pound a day. I told her she'd lose a pound a day, and she was really upset. So we went through everything she did. Okay, are you eating anything? No. You drinking broth? Yeah. What's in the broth? Do you put starch in the broth, a thickener? Sometimes they thicken the starch broth with starch. No, I don't drink any of those. This is all pure. I make it myself. And then what else are you drinking? Well, herbal tea. Do you put anything in the tea? Yeah. 4 drops of stevia. And wow. As soon as we took the stevia out, she started losing weight, a pound a day, as expected. Wow. It made all the difference, just removing that stevia. So the moral of the story is, well, while stevia probably, or at least from what I know, doesn't kill your good bacteria in your intestines, it does kill Lyme disease, by the way. That's kind of an interesting side note. They did a study on stevia and found it was more effective at killing Lyme disease than antibiotics, even IV antibiotics. So, but it also isn't known to promote cancer either. So, you know, it may be okay to use occasionally, but if you have insulin resistance, it's probably not your best idea.
Very interesting. So you mentioned the cancer connection. I've heard a lot about sugar causing cancer. Like, is it a certain types of sugar, like regular sugar that's, cane sugar and everything like that? Is that like, what is the cancer connection with plain old sugar?
Okay, so plain old sugar, you got to think plain old sugar is like, this is what we need. Our bodies need a lot of this. This is what we live on every day. Our brains work on sugar. We have to have it. Our muscles, our hearts are pumping based on this energy source of sugar. And so by itself, sugar is really, really important for the body. And so the cancer connection is toxicity. When the body is toxic on sugar, when there's a really high amount, when it's concentrated in the body, then cancer cells live on sugar. In fact, more than other cells, most of the cells in your body can live on other energy sources like protein and fat, but cancer cannot. So a constant high level of sugar does several things. It decreases the immune function so that you don't get rid of cancer as easily. See, we all make cancer, but the immune system gets rid of those cancer cells pretty quickly. However, when the immune system is impaired by an excessive amount of sugar, and this has been shown, this isn't just theoretical, this is actually, it's a measurable decrease in the function of immune cells, especially natural killer cells that get rid of cancer. Their function is decreased for 8 hours just because you ate a candy bar. I mean, it's an immediate effect on top of the long-term effect of having chronic high blood sugar. And then the other issue is stress. The stress hormones like cortisol are released when you eat sugar. So you release adrenal hormones. And that's the pick-me-up when people say, oh, I feel better when I eat sugar. Yeah, because it's like drinking coffee. You're increasing your adrenal hormones, which also suppresses your immune system and promotes cancer because they're catabolic hormones. So for all those reasons, sugar promotes cancer. But if you get the minimum amount of sugar you need to function and to keep your body working, keep your brain working and your heart working and your muscles working, it's actually really good for you.
So your body converts protein into sugar that you can use, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's an amino acid called glutamine that the body converts into glucose, and so that's called gluconeogenesis, and the liver does that all the time when you run out of sugar.
So it's not like, if you ate no sweets, I almost feel like a new product coming out here, like eat no sweets, like that's what it is. Like you just don't eat sweets and all these things will get better. Yeah.
Okay, so you cannot live without protein. You have to have it because there are essential amino acids that you can't make in your body. You have to eat fats. There are the essential fats you have to eat, like omega-3, omega-6, omega-9, that you can't make in your body and you can't live without. However, there are no essential carbohydrates. You can make the glucose that you absolutely need. You can make it out of protein, and you can use ketones and fat for energy. So you have other energy sources that do not require, you actually can live never eating any glucose at all. The lining of your intestines never uses glucose. Those cells that line your intestines only live on the glutamine from the proteins.
So there's a diet out there that Tim Ferriss promotes. It's called slow carb diet. And he's eating things like, I think there's some types of beans and different things that are low glycemic carbs. Like, is that just maybe a little bit better form of carbs because they take longer to process it or something? become sugar?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, so the problem of Americans overeating, it's actually really helpful to have slow carbohydrates, things that are more gradually absorbed. They're broken down more slowly, and so you don't get this rush of glucose every time you eat, and then your liver fills up with the fructose and actually gets toxic and causes fatty liver. Whereas if you're eating these slow carbs like he's talking about, which legumes and vegetables and some fruits like avocado and cucumbers these are really, really good carbohydrates. And people who have diabetes, who are measuring their blood sugar, often find that they can't eat a potato. You know, they eat a couple of French fries and their blood sugar shoots up, but they can eat a whole plate of beans as long as they're not baked beans filled with sugar. You know, something like, I don't know, refried beans or something. They tolerate those much better, that they're much more, their blood sugar doesn't climb as much.
So starches like potatoes, you talked about how, you know, the taste of sweet triggers insulin, basically. Do starches do the same thing?
Yes. Starches start to be broken down into glucose in the saliva. So as we're chewing our potatoes and corn and bread and cereal, we are already breaking it down into glucose. And the taste buds are saying, oh, glucose, I know what that is. And we're going to need some insulin. And so insulin is produced from starches as well. In fact, quite a bit of insulin is made when you eat starches, as opposed to like when you eat fat. If you just ate some, I don't know, sausage or pork rinds or something like that, it doesn't promote insulin hardly at all. You get hardly any insulin from fat. Protein, you still get some insulin production when you eat protein. Almost none from fat, and then the carbohydrates depends on what it is.
Okay. So it really, the main pillar here is to eat no sweets, but also eat no starches if you want to keep your insulin like as low as possible. And that's really the game, is keeping your insulin low, right? And,
yeah, I often tell people that the number one thing is to avoid the taste of sweet. So, because a lot of people are used to having sweet with everything, and you know, they have to put ketchup on their meat and on their vegetables, and they have to dip into a barbecue sauce, or pour barbecue sauce on their meat, or whatever. That salad dressings, you know, you think you're eating a salad and it's really good for you, and you're pouring this salad dressing on that's full of sugar. You know, most of them are. You know, if you eat, especially like I was looking the other day, a Catalina dressing that was, the second ingredient was sugar, and it was like, wow, man, it's like, that's a lot of sugar in these. You know, after oil was sugar. It was crazy.
yeah. Well, so I mean, the interesting thing is that there's so much like habits that have been formed and addictive behaviors. Like, seems like behavior change and behavior modification is one of the keys to really finding success in, you know, being able to eat no sweets. Because whether our bodies are actually addicted to sugar or sweets or not, like, there's something going on there where, like, you have a trigger. It's like, oh man, I want to go eat some chocolate, or I want to eat a bowl of cereal, or whatever it is, ice cream. Like, so talk about the difference between your body actually craving that, or as opposed to like your mind actually craving that, and how to find success.
Oh,
Overcome.
that's a really good question, because most of hunger is not an empty stomach. People think, oh, my stomach's empty, I must be hungry. But that's not the case, because what they found is people often get hungry who still have food in their stomach. You know, so what the heck? How can you be hungry? You're not producing ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, when your stomach has stuff in it still. It turns out that it really does come from the mind, that it's time to eat is a stronger hunger trigger than my stomach is empty. Think about it this way. I mean, most of you can relate to that, in the sense you wake up in the morning, you haven't eaten since whatever dinner last night, and your stomach is empty in the morning, and you go, oh, I gotta get ready for work. You get ready for work, you skip breakfast, you don't eat anything, you're not even hungry. People often say that, I'm not even hungry in the morning. I don't need to eat anything. And then you go about your day, and then something triggers, like lunch. Ooh, I'm hungry, because it's the trigger of lunch. And then your work is finished at the end of the day, and you go, and you go, wow, I'm really hungry. And so you trigger that. Or you get home, or you smell food, and you go, oh, I'm really hungry. The hunger triggers are not an empty stomach. The hunger trigger is really, smells of food, sight of food. They've found that commercials on TV trigger hunger, that somebody is watching, I don't know, an ad for hamburgers, and he's going, wow, man, I'd really like one of those. And goes in the refrigerator and pulls out some snacks or something and starts eating them. So if you understand that your triggers are all mental in your head, and you know what, I've been dealing with this for years. I have a real big issue with my 6 in 10 program, trying not to eat after 6. I have to constantly remind myself, because my brain is still on the, as soon as work is done, then I get to sit down and eat. And if that's 9 o'clock at night, then that's when I eat. And that's when I get really hungry, and oh my gosh, I got to eat something now. And I can't go to bed without eating. If I push it back and say, well, I'll eat in the morning, then that works pretty well. And I'm okay, but it's really hard to do, because my brain triggers are so much stronger than my stomach triggers for food.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's some good stuff. So the takeaways from that is to eat foods that are mostly fat, low carbs, some protein, and also like eat less food, right? Like,
and avoid artificial sweeteners.
Yeah, avoid anything artificial sweeteners, anything that's anything sweet is going to spike your insulin and keep your weight on because of the hormones. Yeah. So it's not the calories. Well, that's the truth is what sets us free, right? That's what is actually what we need. And so we make excuses all the time of, that sabotage our own success. And so it's really just a matter of digging into what lies are we believing that can get away with. And I think once we tackle that, that's when we can start to really see success. So we've had, speaking of success, a lot of success stories from people, and we're going to read off a couple of those. I'm going to see if we have anybody online. We're waiting for somebody that had a good one to share on video. Leslie, if you can just pipe in quick, do you have anybody that we're going to be going to on video? Otherwise, we can get to some questions that have been asked here.
Not yet, but Matt, I believe if you're on, you had mentioned last week that you may be interested in hopping on and sharing with us. So let me know if you're still available to do that, because we would love to hear your story. And then I'm just going to double check here and see if I can see. Okay.
Do you have some questions that you can read to us, Leslie? That I've kind of not been following the chat.
Yeah, I can for sure. Let's do some Q&A actually. So some of you have commented in the Q&A section, and if you haven't done that already, you can go ahead and ask questions here. We'll try to get to as many as we can. And now I can't get that to open. So we have, let's first ask this. We have a question from Jarrett. Oh, they're coming in quickly. So now I lost where I was at here. 1 second. Does one have to take one's glucose reading every day? If so, what is the best device to get at a drugstore and why?
Okay. So knowing your blood glucose, you have to remember that that is a minute-to-minute thing. It's changing constantly. So knowing your blood glucose is something that can be helpful in some instances, but it isn't something you have to do every day. In fact, if you're in phase 1 of the diabetes solution kit, and you're doing this very low carbohydrate diet, the checking your blood sugar is more of an academic exercise. It's something, well, I'm really interested in knowing what my sugar is now that I've changed my diet. And that's okay, but you don't have to check it every day. You can wait for a little while, wait for a few weeks, maybe a month or so, and then check it every once in a while. And you check your fasting sugar, and you'll notice that over time it goes down, even though sometimes it'll be a little higher, a little lower. You know, it'll bounce between 95 and 133 while you're on it, and then after a while, those higher numbers will go down as you become more sensitive to your insulin. You'll start seeing the below 100 numbers again, and that can take anywhere from weeks to months. So checking it every day isn't necessary. Now, that's a great question, because the next part is actually really useful, and that is when you start adding foods in and you say, gosh, I want to know if potatoes mess up my blood sugar. Then you can check your sugar immediately, and you can say, oh my gosh, I had potatoes, and the next morning my blood sugar was back up to 200. It was horrible. Or, you know, an hour later or 2 hours later, you can check your blood sugar and see what a specific food, how it affects your blood sugar. And so that's really useful, because then, like Joe was talking about the slow carbs, and some of the slow carbs may not affect your blood sugar very much. And so you may find that you can eat beans, or like you can eat red beans, but not black beans. And it's kind of unusual the way people process different things. Like, you know, you can eat regular beans, but not refried beans or something like that. So that blood sugar monitor in phase 2 of the diabetes solution kit is your best friend, because that's how you know what you can eat and what you need to avoid.
All right. Okay. I have another question here from Debbie. This is a great question. I never used to eat sweets, but now that I have diabetes, I crave it all the time. Is the diabetes the reason why I crave the sweets?
Oh, that's a great question. The answer to your question is yes. When you're resistant to insulin, you have higher insulin, you can't burn fat for energy. So it used to be that when your blood sugar would drop a little bit low, you would just immediately switch to fat burning, and you just go right on with your day, and you could keep going, and you could say, well, you know, I'll eat a little while. But when you have high insulin, that's not an option anymore. Because you can't burn fat for energy. You can't just immediately switch to fat burning, because insulin blocks the use of fat. And the other thing it does is increases your cortisol levels, which make you resistant to insulin and craves carbohydrates especially. So breads and cereals, I just gotta have some cereal. Or I need something sweet, I need some fruit. Those kinds of things are indications of insulin resistance. Very good question.
Gordon is asking, is there a test number that my doctor could send to a lab for the insulin resistance index?
Yes, in fact, that's exactly what it's called. It's called insulin resistance index. Okay. Now, almost all tests do it. I know Quest Diagnostics does it, and the doctor can send that in. There is, if you haven't done that, or you don't have that, then it's really simple to do just an insulin test and a sugar test and a hemoglobin A1C. And you take those 3, and if your sugar is a little on the high side, like above 100, and your insulin is above 10, then that's a good indication of insulin resistance. But I've had people with insulin levels in the 60s. I've had people over 100. Their insulin levels over 100, which is really, really insulin resistant. So just doing an insulin level is often helpful, fasting insulin level.
Great. Matt is going to join us next week. So Matt, we look forward to that. We will have another good webinar next Tuesday. So make sure you guys are on. We're going to be talking about some brain health. So it'll be really, really good. Let's do a couple more questions here. If that's okay, Joe. Are we good? Good for questions?
Yes.
Okay. Can you talk about Glipizide and how it works with metformin?
Okay. Glipizide is a medication that works totally different from metformin. So metformin prevents your mitochondria from using sugar and kind of forces your body to use fat for energy, which is really good in diabetes. That's what you want. You want to be able to use fat. And that's why we do this very, very low carbohydrate diet in the beginning of the diabetes solution kit, because what that does is the same thing. It's forcing your body to burn fat. And so we continue usually the glucophage into phase 2 before we get rid of it. The glipizide, however, is completely different. It tricks your pancreas into making more insulin than it normally would. So do I ever use this medication? Yes, I do. I have a patient right now who his pancreas doesn't make enough insulin, and he's been losing weight and losing weight and losing weight, and he can't gain weight because he doesn't have enough insulin. Without insulin, you can't gain weight. You just get skinnier and skinnier. But we checked his pancreas, and it is working. It's just not working enough. So I gave him glipizide so that his body can produce extra insulin and he can gain more weight. And he can have a normal blood sugar. So now we rechecked it last week, and his blood sugar is now in the more normal range. It's in the pre-diabetes range. And he's gained 5 pounds, which is remarkable considering how much he'd lost over the previous year. So there are reasons to use glipizide. However, if you have insulin resistance and you have too much insulin, it's not a good medication. So metformin in that case is good, but glipizide would not be good because it tricks your body into making more insulin, and you already have too much. So that would be not a good choice.
Okay. Another question from Doug. Once your cells become insulin resistant, can this be totally reversed?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. So your question, if you look at it from the diabetes reversal talk that we gave 6 years ago, right, Leslie?
Yes, today.
Yeah, 6 years ago today. We talked about why insulin resistance happens is the cells fill up with sugar. They just fill up and fill up and fill up until they're so full of sugar, they go, we can't take in any more sugar. And they block those insulin receptors so that insulin can't open the doors to bring more sugar into the cells. That's completely blocked. So the question is, can you reverse that? Heck yeah, of course you can. If you quit eating sugar and you start using up that sugar in those cells, then the cells are going to open up and go, oh my gosh, I need more sugar. And then so they'll open up those insulin receptors and everything will be totally back to normal. I'm not talking about just better, but like completely normal.
That is awesome. Okay. This is good. Isn't hunger also triggered by dehydration?
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, it is. In fact, there are many people, anybody who has kids out there and your kids say, I'm hungry. And you go, no, you're not, you're thirsty. No, you're not, you're tired. And so many of my kids would say, I'm hungry when they're tired or thirsty or in some other ways uncomfortable. And you know what? That often persists into adulthood where the adults are saying, I'm hungry. And what they really need to do is stimulate the saliva because they're thirsty, because they don't have enough water and they're dehydrated. So because they're dehydrated, then I need to stimulate, my mouth is dry, I need to stimulate saliva. And how do you do that? Well, sweets are the best way. Sweets will stimulate saliva even if you're dehydrated or if you've already eaten a whole meal. That's why you can eat dessert after this big old meal. You just ate a Thanksgiving dinner and you had all this turkey and stuffing and all these vegetables and everything. You're so full. And then they bring out the pie. And what happens? You start making saliva again. So, especially sweets are what people will eat when they're really thirsty, when they're really dehydrated. That's an excellent question.
Okay, Joe, I'm going to let you, I know you sent me something. I want to see what it is here. Sorry. Or maybe you want to hop on. I'll let Joe maybe ask a question here.
Yeah. Okay, so this is great questions. A couple more questions have been asked. We'll get to in a second. But I want people in the comment chat box, share with us what is your favorite go-to low-carb meal that you love the most that we can share with each other. So put that in the chat. And then Eric, you asked a great question about erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol. Scott, talking about sweets and that, any difference with sugar alcohols and erythritol?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, most of the sugar alcohols like erythritol and sorbitol they're really good, and they're not bad, and they don't kill your bacteria, and they don't cause cancer, and they're decent to be used on an occasional basis. But remember, again, the taste of sweet can still make you more insulin resistant, and they are natural. Most of them, like sorbitol and erythritol, are natural sweeteners, and they can be very useful. So no, they're not bad. They're okay. They're much better than a lot of the other ones like saccharin and sucralose. However, when you are trying to get unresistant to insulin, it's not a good choice to eat sweet things anyway.
All right. Well, we're trying to find an exception to the rule, but the rule still stands. So.
Dang, isn't that a bummer? Those darn rules. We got to work around the rules.
All right. Grace shared her favorite meal is chicken on salad greens with oil and vinegar dressing. That sounds good. That's in the plan, right? That's in phase 1. That definitely works.
Yeah, I like the salmon. I make a salmon salad that's really good. Salmon on greens, and I use a vinegar, balsamic vinegar and oil with some pine nuts. And that is really good.
Yeah, that does sound good. Yeah, you can add a lot of good stuff to salad and keep it low carb, but higher fats and some proteins like avocado and bacon and some peppers and onions and all good stuff. So
there is nothing that is so good that bacon can't make it better.
That's right. Twinkies. Oh, wait a second. And Leslie, you share live, Leslie. What is your favorite go-to low carb meal?
If I'm doing dairy, if I'm trying to eat low carb, sometimes I do dairy and sometimes I don't. But one of our favorites that the whole family will eat, it's a low carb pizza, but the crust is actually just cream cheese and eggs, and then you bake that, and then you add your pizza sauce and as many vegetables and whatever toppings you want, and that's kind of a lot of times that is just a go-to. So.
All right, Leslie, bring us home with like 3 more questions from the list here. Then we'll have to wrap up.
I like this one. When does a person know when they can stop using meds, especially if the doctor believes only in meds?
Oh, that's a great question. You don't need medications if your blood sugars are normal. So remember, the purpose for the medications is to lower blood sugar. And if your blood sugars are going down to normal, then you don't need them anymore. I have a patient in a nursing home who has chronic diabetes, and she has a foot ulcer, and they're talking about cutting her foot off. They want to amputate her foot. And when she came in, her blood sugars were always 200 and 300, and she's on all these medications. They're injecting insulin, 100 units of insulin, which is a large amount. So she's super insulin resistant. And I said, look, do you want to save your foot? Here's what you have to do. You have to quit eating sugar, quit eating all these carbohydrates. Just when they bring you food, just say, no, I don't want it. Just bring me some broth and I'll drink that. And she actually did it. And her blood sugars are normal. We just tested her hemoglobin A1C yesterday, and it's 7. And it was always 11, 9, 12. It was way up there, and it's 7 for the first time in many years. And her foot ulcer is healing. So and now she's off all her medications. She's not on insulin anymore, and her blood sugars are in the normal range. So the danger of being on medications when your blood sugars get normal is that your blood sugar will get too low, and hypoglycemia can be worse than hyperglycemia, than high blood sugar. So you don't want the blood sugar to get low. So here's what you do. You call your doctor when you're on the diet and you say, my blood sugar is getting really low. What do I do? Pause, long pause, and let the doctor answer the question. The doctor's going to answer the question and tell you what you should do when your blood sugar is too low.
That's good. Okay. What else? This is from Joanna. How does Glipizide differ from Jardiance?
Well, they're very different. Jardiance is a medication that works on the glucagon system, and Glipizide works on the insulin system. So they're completely different ways of working on blood sugar. And for people with insulin resistance, I don't recommend either one of them because they don't help you to become less insulin resistant. And so they don't need to be used at all when you're, as soon as you start the phase 1 of the program, then you won't need either one of those.
Okay. Another question here. What is the effect of fresh lemon water during a fast?
Oh, that's interesting. Fresh lemon water, well, so the idea of lemon water partly is to improve the pH of the system, and your enzymes work better at a slightly higher pH. And so the idea of lemon water is to improve the way your enzyme systems create energy and to make you more efficient. There's nothing magical about it particularly, and it might help to make it more efficient. The same way cinnamon helps to make you work a little better, make your insulin work a little better, so that you can become less insulin resistant faster. And so it may help speed the recovery, but in the long run, really the idea is to eat fewer calories, especially fewer carbohydrates.
Okay. All right, guys. I think that is about it for today. Again, thank you, Joe and Dr. Saunders, for being with us and for all of your information. Always good. I always learn so much. And make sure you guys come back next Tuesday, every Tuesday, same time. Let your friends know. We're going to post this on Facebook, so be sure to share this there. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure you go there and do that as well. You can find us at Barton Publishing Webinars. There is also a link to all of this information on bartonwebinar.com. I'm going to go ahead and post that in the chat. bartonwebinar.com. Talking and typing is difficult. Okay, there we go. But bring your questions for next week. We're going to be opening the end of our webinar up for all of your questions again. So it's a great opportunity for you to pick Dr. Saunders' mind and ask him the hard stuff, because it's really fun for us to learn as well. So get your questions ready. Hop on next week. Tell your friends, and go to bartonwebinar.com to find all the links to all the information that we're talking about today, the Diabetes Solution Kit, all of our supplements, etc. So anything else you guys want to share before we say goodbye to our friends here? No? We're good.
Just an awesome testimonial. Janice just shared an awesome testimonial. I wonder if she would hop on video to share this, but I'm going to read it quick. Janice, give us a little note here if you're willing. Like, we'd love to add you and see your smiling face to share this. But actually, she said she doesn't care to turn her volume on. So, anyways, I'll just read it unless she changes her mind. 3 weeks and she's lost 13 pounds. Her fasting sugar levels are down from the 140 to 150s, down to 106 to 110. The doctor at her appointment yesterday was very pleased. Also, her blood pressure readings are back down. Praise the Lord. So that is awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Janice, we'd love to have you come on camera one of these days, but we'll keep celebrating with you. And so maybe next week we'll get you. So as well as Matt. All right. Well, this has been a great call. Thanks, everybody. And looking forward to seeing you guys on our Facebook page as well, which you can get to from bartonwebinar.com. It's the 610 Reset little page group that we have that people are sharing stuff. And so that's a good spot as well. All right, Scott, thanks again for everything. This is awesome. Good information. And I'm going to go not eat.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.